Welcome to our lovely future humans, our 5D collective, to those who are conscious leaders and spiritual leaders, and therefore with the somatic and mindset micro habit move into the future. And what do we do best? We get to be one ourselves the smart way, but above all, we get to move out of survival defensive loops because we're ventral pivoting, is the way I like to bring it to you. So stable, mature, adaptive, rational, teachable. You can check out PayHip for those lovely resources, but wait before you do go, because there's also something called resetting that I want to discuss. Okay, so if you feel like you're constantly resetting back to square one when you're doing any kind of personal growth or spiritual growth practice, then you are managing symptoms, not capacity, which means you're not moving beyond the window of tolerance with a very specific one or two or more aspects that are part of your inner world. So we're going to chit chat about moving beyond control, and that's because controlling emotions and controlling your mind in every situation it's an answer that I gave on a short, and this is for those of you who listen, because I know you don't go to YouTube for the shorts, okay? And that was a subreddit self-help book question that I engaged in, but also we're going to continue chit-chatting about somatic mindset micro habits and how they fuel embodied leadership, because leading happens when you go beyond the ego. So I have messages, food for thought, but also the lovely stories of what a ventral pivoter can tell you about when I look out into the world what I see. And that is, tomorrow we have our lovely Lionsgate portal, I think, closes out, and we also have a solar eclipse. Yeah, so we have some messages. But in the meantime, if you're new, you don't know. So I help those who are conscious leaders, spiritual leaders, with real-time somatic mindset shifts so that they can feel liberated to continue being their grown-up version with their innocence, their child version. And that's because we discern effective realism distortions. We discern our own child charge parts. We discern our emotional frequency. So in real time, we're not going to spiritually bypass because we're not going to somatically bypass. In real time, we're not going to be fake in our composure. We're going to be empowered in our composure. In our activated state, earthquake or not, tune into that episode, we will not be wearing a mask, because wearing a mask would mean I'm pretending. And those who do wear masks are the ones who are using minimum energy mode, which I spot and call weak. They may have discipline, but they don't actually have good discipline, because, see, nervous system does this thing. It's an embodied brain. And it will repeat the same pattern, which is why Robert Sapolsky's book Determined, I don't agree that we have no free will, but I know what he's talking about because I'm an embodied brain too. So I have sensations, images, behaviors, affects, meanings, which is why if you don't know who you are, you won't really be ahead of any kind of game. And really the game of life is a gift. So spiritual mystic here, rejected by those who I find have betrayed all of us by doing the thing they do best, leading with their own biases. And their biases are full of effective realism distortions, cognitive dissonance, structural dissociation, dysregulation. As they carry on the baton of their trauma into the future, we don't. But one day we will say, as empowered, composed leaders, excuse me, we decided to respect your subjective beliefs, even though science proves there's no demons inside the body of anyone and proves God's perfection, as well as Jesus' words of how the kingdom of God is within everyone. Now, the ones who don't know how to use two sides of the brain, they chose to separate themselves and become little groupies of each other, and like Peter Pan and Lost Boys, continue to have fun with Wendy, and we're watching from afar because we won't be involved in any kind of maladaptive child patterns of behavior. Do you hang out with people who are insecure and treat each other like shit? Like Diego's family from Ice Age, anyone? Or just go watch Zootopia 2 and find out at the end what happens. And I was like, this is disgusting. Why would they do that instead of making us aware, like with a healthy ending, which is the person goes to therapy with the entire family instead of becoming basically a villain in the story. So I don't find it amusing or appealing to model that which is passing down the transgenerational baton, but I understand people like to be entertained. So I try to entertain people while educating. And remember, I'm not the therapist. Therapists are for the ones who will take ownership, and in fact, they'll see the same thing I saw with Zootopia and be like, you could have taught something way different than that, which would have been completely better than what I got to see, because that was not empowering, enlightening, or I don't think the TV is trying to dumb anyone down. I think there's a bunch of people out there who are doing it wrong. Excuse me, I'm so sorry, where are my manners? I like Patrick Tiahan. He's a good childhood trauma survivor, healing therapist, and he points it out. The immature ones don't want to do the work, they just want to be loved. Now, Therapy Nutshell Lady explains to us with her colleague how to work with people who are emotionally mature. So they have a method and a model and whatnot. I know all about it. Please remind yourself. We do forgive, so let's mind our own business as we continue to employ that which is mindset in the growing way and somatic in the loving way. So if you feel like you're constantly resetting back to square one, again, that's called managing symptoms, not capacity. So your window of tolerance, you want to be able to expand it. Okay, that's when you're going to be using the embodied leader position. And so you move out of survival defensive loops that are our own. We move out of being too irritated with 3-year-olds who are broken because they could use fixing, but they don't want it. And I'm not joking on you right now. The teenager version of them is unappealing as they are epistemically lazy, not curious. They're dysregulated. Like I said, they backstab each other, then they praise each other, and they feed each other fish. And I look disgusted from afar because I'm like, you're not teaching each other how to fish. It's like you're copying each other again and again, but you're not learning anything. Furthermore, you're making it seem like our human species is so dumb that everybody's going to be like, everyone's suffering. And no, not everyone suffers and not everyone's dumb. Actively, there are some of us who we are happy at life because of our fulfillment. And then we spot the ones who suffer and say, wait, that's an unsteady self-image. That. Oh, hey, Patrick Tiahan, I got them for you, but they chose Boca Raton instead of coming to do the hard work. They didn't want the fetal position. What can I say? They're actually treating me like a little piece of shit every now and then. So, so anyways, you just learn how moving beyond control and mental faculties is because you're like, wow, I can think a bunch of things and feel a bunch of things. Okay, let me get back to our topic. So, as I was saying, true leadership. It emerges when you possess the capacity to maintain mental clarity and bring forth wisdom from the mind. Diffusing conflict while revealing solutions for the whole that look beyond the immediate present. And I want you to understand that that's what the leader is, which is why the true leaders leave a legacy behind that we build upon. As a spiritual one, I do want you to understand nothing is going to get destroyed the way that 3D, 4D like to bring it. Anything that serves no longer, there's nudges that get gifted. They're called choice points. God doesn't come in and do shit in a way of being a scary monster. But if someone, meaning by 1 or 8 billion, don't listen, well, nudges get louder and louder. So from one made by the people, for the people, I look at all of it. I'm like, well, let's see what the conclusion is. Do you think there's a lot of smart people, or do we think there's not as many? But we really only need 1% to be intelligent. So does it really matter that so many are just pretending to be intelligent? Thanks God, as he points out, Maria, get on with it. You do not rely on the past per se, nor do you try to predict the future. That's why you use a prefrontal cortex, which is what makes it amazing. Robert Spolsky, your book Determined is pretty awesome, but I like to let you know I'm right here. So a common misunderstanding in personal development and spiritual growth is that you can simply think or meditate your way out of physiological trigger. That's not how it works. The earthquake, my body did the thing it's going to do. As a mystic, downloads didn't confuse me because I talk to God all the time. Also, I told him a long time ago, if you send me anything that is monstrous, I'm not even going to bother with it because I already know what the test is. You're not God, and there you go. So that's how simple it is. As for human beings, none of them are yucky. They're all my brothers and sisters. So the low frequency, it's actually trauma that needs healing. So if they're going to keep populating the sky with all that stuff, I'm just saying. So, FYI, when your body defaults to a protective survival loop, like overcompensating, hiding, or wearing a high-functioning mask, yes, willpower fails. And there's a bunch of bypassers who continue to fail each other, because while they validate each other's emotionally charged biases and the stories, I think, you're betraying your calling. You're supposed to have learned how to have the 2 types of compassion, as the Dalai Lama points out. First, your own, he mentions mother, so that's here secure attachment. The second, love thy enemy, which is why all of the insecure ones you want to love just like you love yourself, which is why you don't want to treat them like little pieces of shit, because that's not nice. They already got treated like that. You see what I'm saying? So when you're on the floor and you're humble, you just remember how it works. Everybody has a choice point to be made. I chose to be Maria and not pretend it. Everybody else will choose what they will choose. As for countries, they will also choose. Did you know that karma and soul age groups are for countries and for people? So whenever I look at spiritual and mystical and faith information, and then I look at science with the somatic stuff, I'm like, okay, we got two groups. Intelligence, the other group, pretty fabulous. And while the other group, I use a lot of my time to make fun of them, so I'm going to try and stop that. I help spiritual and conscious regulated leaders to navigate reactive survival loops with self-compassionate honesty and steady empowering composure using somatic mindset micro habits. I do still have a judgmental asshole, but I don't have a delusional idiot. The book, The Left Brain Speaks, The Right Brain Laughs, and that's by Ransom Stevens. You can learn a lot about your embodied brain. He's a neuroscientist, and how I'm not my indulging parent. Thank you, Stephen. I am, however, the lovely child who's fascinated by all of it. And then because of God and my faith, I have no fear of monsters because I'm a mystic. The ones who are unfortunately overwhelmed by their senses, yes, they have a solution and they don't want it. It's called Patrick McNamara Proves There's No Demons Inside of Anyone. He's another neuroscientist. So when you meet spiritual bypassers, they cut cords, energy vampires, dark auras, and all that other bullshit. They talked about dark night of the soul, ego death, and I'm just like over that. And I'm like, twin flames can't test a empowered divine feminine, and we don't need the matrix to be dismantled because that just sounds like Fantasia. Then again, Bill Nye points out, even if it exists, would you really know it? So, a somatic mindset microhabit is an integrated body and mind, mind-to-body practice. It is designed to simultaneously downregulate your physical nervous system activation and disrupt reactive narrative loops to anchor long-term self-sovereignty and to get out of your own distortions. So how easy is it for me to let you in on fun fact? I know the truth is objective, a handful of them. Thanks, Neil deGrasse. And then I know that a lot of other stuff is subjective. And what leaders do best is with the words of wisdom and with self-regulation, they're able to have an empowered, composed, and very eloquent, might I add, also intelligent interaction. They also aren't competing with insecure Cains of the world. I'm so sorry. I know the Cains of the world, I told them they're loved, but you know, you can't get people to get out of self-loathing, gut-wrench, torn apart, insecurity stuff if they don't go heal themselves with a good therapist. They're not going to do anything with the pay hip store. Not even a little bit, because they're the same ones who think self-help is bullshit and crap, personal development and spiritual growth, and that's because they don't want to do the work because they haven't understood what a window of tolerance is and how you expand it. You do it again and again and again and again and again, and you're going to be living until whatever year you die. That's how easy it is. So when someone says, I did it, I'm alive now, that was a choice point. Wow, you know, you just needed to find out that we don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg. And expert yogis don't have an issue with this. So it's called what motivates you to basically continue using your human makeup for that which it was made for. The restored, embodied, self-aware, accountable, regulating life is thanks to the flow state. It's fucking brilliant. And that's, again, something that not all people will know, but that's okay. So when you are able to sit within the space of the unknown with all that is and all that is not, acknowledging that there is no bulletproof way to execute perfectly every time, you're going to have freedom. Free to be whatever you want to be, well, within reason, of course. And so the simple breakdown to scale the somatic mindset micro habits that you will potentially put into practice depending on your two distinct capacities. One, when you are at ease and so regulated, they no physical life-threatening anything going on, no trigger that isn't yet, you know, being able to be in your prefrontal. FYI, therapists are for those who are still living their past. Personal growth are for those who use a prefrontal cortex, just so we're clear about that. And when you hear a shaman say, come to me, don't go to therapy, that's not nice. And that's a spiritual bypasser who forgot their place and that they're not in competition with the good therapists, the good ones, to help people to get their embodied brain and to be the owner of that mind so they own the brain. That's why they're the owner of the mind, so they can control and move beyond control of emotions and their thoughts. And all of that which would come up. So they might still have things from their past that comes up, but they know how to use their prefrontal. So they'll say, I can use Maria's somatic mindset micro-habit practices because I know what I'm working with, because I'm no longer reactive in a way of my past living through me. So they're responsible. That's the one thing a grown-up and actually, a leader will be mentally, healthfully responsible versus having a knee-jerk reaction, rejecting good therapy and thinking they are perfectly well when their mannerisms show clearly that they're distorting a bunch of shit all over the place, and anyone who is smart remotely will notice it. because that's how it works. So keeping the integrated wisdom of both mind and heart activated is what defines leaders who leave a lasting legacy behind. Discernment and equanimity build that which stands the test of time because they stem from a place of authenticity, in communion with the greater good and open to unforeseen events, yet backed by enough knowledge to move into the future to the best of your ability. So we all know there ain't no perfection. There's 8 billion of us, but you better bet the embodied intelligent ones, the sentient beings, know where we're headed because they care about everyone, which is why they will do what they will do best, build, and they don't build crap because the solid foundation means it can't be broken. Yeah, so we know 5D is moving to 7D, just FYI. This requires moving beyond narrow biases, likes and dislikes, to create what truly serves all of humanity, free from an agenda of what you think should or shouldn't be. And so when people do not know how to move beyond their ego, they continue to apply what they would want the world to look like, which is hilarious because especially the ones who think they're spiritual and they talk about being and then they don't notice themselves. Okay, so level 2, Sub-Somatic-Mindset microhabit. This is in a 5 to 60 second snap and done that you're going to begin breathing basically, because you got activated and you'll know it. Okay, so this is the practice that you enjoy doing, which is why you don't need to control your emotions or your mind. If you are a person who's been embodying securely attached self, you know how to do this like the back of your hand, and that's why it's physical, life-threatening situations that would be cause for you to use this, like the earthquake. And with that, give me one moment. So we don't do resets also because we're consistently building good resilience with the somatic mindset microhabits. The resilience is of your ventral vagal state. So someone who doesn't know how to stay on all the time should consider what came out of their mouth and then consider doing something with Deb Dana so they can continuously learn how to anchor in their ventral vagal state. And so because we are somatic empaths and we will have a relational field always as we co-regulate together, I get to practice differentiating and linking again and again and again and again and again. And so your insecure brothers and sisters don't actually create any kind of level of dysregulation within you. You self-regulate, you notice what's in the field, and then because it's not bad or good, you're just like, oh, okay, I got it. It was someone like my big man, baby child friend who has a definite sympathetic that goes on in ways that I'm not going to mention right now. But wait for it because I wanted to read to you also something before we go, and we might have some other stories in a little bit. But the answer that I gave to the subreddit self-help books community. So somatic mindset microhabits for leaders, conscious leaders, spiritual leaders, those of you who lead yourself and others, and who understand who the groupies are for. We don't want to control emotions and mind. Eventually, we want to be a master of it, but you also understand what control is. It's a comfortable blanket for our human secondary consciousness. So we all will have healthy fear, which is why true leaders exist with healthy fear and not distortions. They do understand how the unknown works, and like Louis Pasteur has stated, chance favors the prepared mind. So when you own the mind, it's because you own the brain. Otherwise, you don't own the mind. With owning the brain, you own your nervous system. With owning the nervous system, when your window tolerance is narrowed because of an earthquake or whatever shit went down, you notice it, you breathe, and you begin doing stuff, and then you know you're going to have days where things are going to come out, and that's okay, like the panic attack that came for however many days after. I forget the exact timeline at this point, but we also have ascension energy about. So if you don't have the capacity to navigate yourself yet, then you are navigating blind. Okay, so those who don't own their mind because they don't own their brain are navigating blind, or better said, they're navigating the past, the child parts, and their subconscious. So they're leading with what Pat Ogden has defined as the 0-8-year-old non-metabolized trauma time. And so with that, they're not leading. They're just following each other around. And the people who know how to discern and be equanimous and who are not just in control, but are actively wielding all of that, which is our very, very strong emotions. Because when I see those who betray us and they lecture us, my colleague down here and my gut begin to get angry, my self-agents, because I want to correct that shit, you better bet. When they reject us by trying to shame us, mystic, spiritual, polyamory, monoamory, it don't matter. It's, really, you can reject me. I actually don't want to be a part of your group because you're all disgusting to me. That's an exaggeration, but that's how it feels when you're around hypocrites and you're like, you're all faking it. I don't want to be around fake people. You don't have what it takes to be a real you. But then I'm reminded of how Peter Levine humbled me as I cried my eyes out for the poor little broken winged bird who's going to head on in a cave with a cat and look at me as if I'm the cat when I'm not the cat. So the ones who want to humiliate us, by the way, they humiliate themselves because their epistemically lazy ass is so obvious it's not even funny. Abandon, oh, I don't need someone who's going to blame me and not take accountability to be around. They can go and abandon and hang out with the ones who abandon each other. Injustice, well, I have no concern because God takes care of it. I've seen cosmic karmic balancing. So those who are creating suffering in this very instant, justifying their means with their cognitive dissonance, structural dissociation, their entire ego, again, not for us to decide how it goes. In the meantime, self-loathing, gut-wrench, torn apart, nothing pretty about that one. So they will continue to justify their ways, but they're navigating blind while we are not, which is the difference. And so when someone's reactive versus responsive, when someone is dumbed down with an angry butthole, they definitely can present a number of things. But again, as a spiritual one, I know, and as an embodied leader, and as someone who went to college, and yes, my master's degree is in international relations and diplomacy. I know there's a bunch of embodied, smart, brilliant people out there, and I don't believe in conspiracies at all, because actually that's a whole other story. So, to control your emotions, as I answered this person who was having a very struggling time with it, and mind, I said, in every situation, you need to have the capacity to spot your own affective realism distortions, emotional charges, child parts, and from this place bring yourself down from an activated state to your baseline, which is a safe body, brain, mind, ventral vagal state. Through these daily somatic mindset practices and micro habits, you'll master control. Eventually, this leads you to having fun with the process, and you move from control to mastery of emotions. That's why we're not afraid of somatic countertransference, by the way, and energy vampires and dark auras. Those are all the spiritual bypassers, somatic bypasser community who, if they want, they can disengage from it by differentiating and linking and continuing to understand that I know autonomous self-regulation. And if someone doesn't, I'm not going to impose it upon them. I don't have to dysregulate with them, and I won't, because I know how to self-regulate. And then I know how not to judge the emotional stuff. It's not emotions. It's a dysregulated nervous system. That's it. I don't have to do anything about it. In fact, actually, by differentiating and linking, I stay muy, and nobody knows any different. Empowered composure, but also unconditional love and compassion. The physiological state of compassion. Oh, and being intelligent for real, not pretend. So we don't judge people who don't know how to get themselves into their prefrontal, because that's not nice, even though they're irritating. So yes, I definitely sound like a judgmental asshole sometimes, and I'm trying to work on it. But meantime, I'm also trying to share with you all, let's not pretend that everybody is doing the responsible stuff, because they're not. Responsible means you own your embodied brain, you know how to self-regulate, you know how to use your fucking brain in the prefrontal, and if you're pretending it, well, someone who knows the difference is going to notice it, and we're not going to let you in on it. Because dysregulated people tend to do the one thing they do best. I'm doing great, Mamiya. What are you talking about? And that's the moment of truth. If you try saying anything, Miss Perfect, what do you think? You know everything? You're judging me. You're me then. So you're like, okay, you know what? Never mind. Found it hard to believe. And first you're like, that's exactly how people answer you when they're like, no. So eventually you move into mastery, and then we have to go on our merry way and all have fun together. So autonomous self-regulation, capacity to wield your thoughts toward growth and expansion. And as I continue to let you in on, I've completely been Maria my entire life. And it is definitely liberating, humbling, and empowering. And what I love is that the scientists are going to get any of those brothers and sisters of ours on board with it. And when I say scientists, I mean the mindful therapist, with the responsibility of those who want to get themselves online and to join us. And the future keeps moving forward. Mind by Daniel J. Siegel. Here's one book I suggested. The Left Brain Speaks, The Right Brain Laughs by Ransom Stevens. Book 2, Anchored by Deb Dana. They're really good. And Restored Embodiment and Resilience by Alan Fogel. And check out PayHip for those lovely practices. There's some free PDFs. And then there's also purchasable digital resources. And join us on Substack, where we have more coming. And in the meantime, have a good one.